Hey everybody, what's going on? Eric here, and just getting ready to take off to Quincy, Illinois. Yeah, we're going on a little bit of a road trip out to the in-laws cabin. It's about 5 hours away from Streamwood, and it's going to be an interesting road trip, as it always is. A lot of cornfields and going through a lot of small towns. A lot of these small towns, if you blink, you just drove through it. And also in a lot of these small towns, this is the only place where you'll see the grocery store, the bank, the post office, and the gas station all in one store. So, also, the cost of living is cheaper in these smaller towns, meaning that the taxes are lower and you'll find better deals on different stuff. Now, I was supposed to make a video blog yesterday, but I ended up having to do too much shit, too much running around, trying to get things done ready for today so we could leave. So I'm going to try to do a quick one now. So this would be video blog 2.0, and I got to hand it to Ed Dana, thumbs up. This was kind of a good idea, breaks the monotony of things, and yeah. So I'm going to get into this one, and this one's going to be about pawn shops, corporate and mom and pops. So a lot of you guys have your own little pawn shops and stuff like that around your area. In Streamwood over here, we have a lot of these American pawns. Cash Converters has been around for years. They changed their name, now there's something else. But we're getting a lot of these corporate stores that are opening up. And a lot of these corporate stores, they're not worried about paying their light bill because they're a big chain. They've got the money to, put into the store, into their employees and stuff like that. Also, with a lot of these big corporate stores, these pawn shops, they're able to buy an item, and if it doesn't sell in their store, they can just transfer it over to another store. The mom and pop shops, they have a light bill, rent, employees, whatever. They have to pay their, and they mark their stuff down at a reasonable price to where, yeah, you can still negotiate it, but they're still going to make a little bit of a profit off of it and be able to pay their electric bill. They don't have other stores to where they can just send their item to a different town or a different city and be able to put it up in their shelves and possibly sell it a lot quicker. The small mom and pop shops don't have those options. So the mom and pop shops out here, there isn't any. There's none. We don't have any small, little store pawn shops anymore around over here. They all turn into corporate ones. And the corporate ones, I have a friend who used to work for American Pawn, and he was telling me some of the little secrets that they have and how they buy and sell things and what they go by. They used to have a little blue book that they used to go by as far as buying things, and they knew what the price stuff is that they're going to give you and what to put it on the shelf for to sell it. And usually it was still, an outrageous price that they were going to give you, basically screwing you over. And they're kind of told to screw you over. And then mark up the price 3 times and put it up on the shelf. If it doesn't sell, like I said, they can just transfer it over to another store and see if it'll sell in that. And they can keep moving the item around until somebody buys it. Negotiating for a price as far as what's on the ticket is not all that great either. The small mom and pop shops, they're open for negotiating. They're open for, as long as it's a reasonable price and it still makes a little bit of a profit for them, they'll be more than happy to help you. The big corporate stores do a thing now where instead of having a book to go by, they use eBay. They'll type in the item on eBay, look it up, and then they'll hit the recently sold, and they'll look at what that item recently sold for, regardless if it was a bid price or if it was just an outright price. The bad thing about this is they also look at, say, if something sold for $250 and $50 of that was shipping, they'll throw that in as or roundabout. So it'll be like $249. They don't look at the shipping part and deduct the shipping off of the price. They go by what it's sold for completely. The bad thing about it is they also look at the lowball price that item sold for on eBay, and that's what they give you a percentage of as buying it from you. So you're getting screwed royally. All right. And then as you sign the paper and get your receipt from them for selling an item to them, on that receipt in fine print basically states that you can't do dick if you see that walking back into that store and you see your item that you sold for $50 on their shelf for $200. Okay, you can't do nothing about it. So that's kind of how these, big corporation pawn shops work, and you won't find any antiques. You won't find any like damaged goods, like scratches, dings, dents, whatever, and you won't find anything that is within a certain year. Like cash converters used to do, they stopped selling wood grain finished electronics. They went from gray to black to gray again, as far as electronics go, because the electronics seem to change up as far as the color goes of their plastic shell that they put things in, and they got to go with the times. The mom and pop shop, they'll buy almost anything. Okay, as long as they think it can make them a profit, they'll buy almost anything. Antiques you'll find at a mom and pop pawn shop, and that's what I like about this road trip, is because there's a lot of small towns. There's a lot of mom and pop pawn shops. Now, I'm not talking about resale shops as far as, say, Goodwill and shit like that. I kind of stay away from those. Don't really find too many good things over there as far as electronics go, and yeah, I don't bother with them. I don't mind donating, but I don't like, buying from them. Anyways, when we get on the road, I know there's 3 pawn shops that are on the way over there that I'm going to hit up. And these are small towns, and these are literally mom and pop running a pawn shop, all right? When we get out to Quincy, there are about 2 more pawn shops out there and 2 or 3 music stores that are in the town of Quincy. I know there's 2 of them for sure. I'm not sure about the third one. The third one might be another pawn shop. I'm not sure. But I know that the music store that's out there is basically run by a guy and his wife. And then the other music store that's over there is a lot more used equipment, beat up, outrageously priced. But yeah, but there's room for negotiation. Now, the pawn shops that are out there, there are a couple of them that I go to. The one is kind of, it's run by, a guy and his wife, again. And he's a little bit more reasonably priced, but he doesn't have very good quality in things. A nice thing about the mom and pop pawn shops is, if a Fender guitar comes in and it looks like it's relict, or worn out or whatever, they will buy it because they know they'll bring in a couple bucks. But the corporate ones, unless it's pristine as far as, if it comes that way where it's relict and it's been like that from the factory, fine, they'll buy it, as long as it shows pictures of it that it's relic from the factory. But if it's something that's worn out and beat up just by use, they won't buy it at all. Regardless of what brand name is on it, they're very picky. At least I know the ones out here are. You're better off selling something like that to a music store, or just outright selling it on eBay, rather than going through an American pawn store or whatever, because they'll screw you. The mom and pop shops that I'm going to go hit up are pretty decent as far as their pricing goes. I'm not too sure as far as how they price their stuff go. I know one of the pawn shops that's in Quincy, Illinois, they do the same thing, as they base their shit off of eBay. And they're a little bit more like, they suck, put it to that way. I ended up walking into a place last year and I found a Schecter guitar. It was like 300 some odd dollars they went for it. And it was a Schecter guitar that had the weird body shape and stripes going down the front of it, on the face of it. It was like black and white stripes. Had a Floyd Rose on there, bolt-on neck. They had $300 price tag on it. Now, I carry my phone with me regardless of what store I go to as far as a pawn shop goes. And I will look up the item on eBay myself to see what it sold for used. In good condition, poor condition, what the highest price was to the lowest price. And I'll base my pricing that I hand these guys with that. I may walk out with the item I'm looking for, I may not, because some of these guys don't want to budge. This pawn shop had a lot of, it didn't look like a normal pawn shop, number one. It had a lot of red cherry cabinetry done. I mean, it was nice. It was very, very nice for a pawn shop. And it had 2 floors. It was a big place. They weren't budging on that price, even though there was a crack in the neck pocket. There was a couple of little chips and dings in the finish, and the neck needed some fretwork done. Plus the strings they had to be replaced too. And I mentioned everything that I found and showed the guy what I found with this guitar, and it needed a setup pretty bad as well. They wouldn't budge very much at all off that price. So I was like, okay, fine. It's not. I don't need it. It's not worth my time, and I'm not going to spend the money. So I walked up. Went back over to the other pawn shop where these guys are a little bit more reasonable. They're a little bit, you can work with them and everything else. That's the thing about the mom and pop pawn shops. They are willing to work with you, because if they don't, the item's going to sit on the shelf. It's going to stay there, and they don't have another store where they can transfer it to. A lot of these guys, they throw their stuff on eBay to try to sell it that way as well. So they do have a second option, but again, it's going to sit. And I noticed with some of these pawn shops too is they will have a solid price tag on their item but a bid on eBay. Okay, so they're either going to take one or the other. And if the bid's lowballed, I've also noticed that some of these pawn shops, like the American Pawn and shit like that, when the timer comes up on the eBay bidding thing, if it's not around a certain price, they'll pull the item off, or they'll set a real stupid leeway for like how much they're going to take for it, like the reserve. They'll set it really really high. All right, so by no choice, it has to get up to that certain number, otherwise it's not going to sell. But I've seen them pull the item off of eBay because it didn't sell, or it didn't get to it wasn't going any place on the bidding to where it was worth their time to sell it to somebody. They weren't getting the top dollar that they wanted, period. And I know from being an eBay seller too, if you pull something off of eBay, I think there still is a fee or something that you have to pay for that. So, yeah. Now, a lot of you guys have your own way of doing things as far as pawn shops go, which is good. At least you got your own little system, little pattern stuff. Like I said, I bring my phone with me and I figure out what the price of that item is going to be in the condition that it's in. That way I have something to work with when I walk up to the counter. I know a little bit of what's going on. The bad thing about this is they know you're doing this too. All right. Regardless if it's a mom and pop shop or if it's a corporate store. Corporate stores, they really frown upon having these cell phones and everything else, because they know you're looking at the same item that you're interested in online, and you know what you can get it for as well. So you have a little bit of negotiating to do. The bad thing about it is these guys aren't going to take it. They're not going to be reasonable with you as far as the price goes. But like I said before, a mom and pop pawn shop are a little bit more reasonable, and they're willing to work with you with certain things, which is cool. I mean, it works out for the best for both parties. They make a little bit of profit. You pay what you want. The only bad thing about walking into either pawn shops is that if you walk in with an attitude, all right, there are some people that know exactly what they've got. They know exactly what they want to get for it. They walk in with that attitude, and what happens is you get an attitude back, and you walk out with nothing. So that's the only bad thing about it. These guys know that, like I said, with these cell phones and everything else, that you're looking at the same thing online. And when you walk in with your head up in the air and acting like an asshole, well, you're going to be sent out acting like an asshole too. So, that's how it works. So yeah, just a little bit on, little blog on, pawn shops. I'm looking forward to this, and like I said, get the hell out of Dodge for a while, and maybe come home with a couple of new things. I know last year, if the same item is there from last year, I know it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper this year if it's still there, and it works out pretty good. Now, I'm not looking for like Squires. I'm not looking for, I'm looking for like Schecters. I'm looking for maybe a possible Fender, maybe a possible Gibson. Epiphone's not too bad. ESP is not, Ibanez is not too bad. I'm looking for those types of brand names as far as guitars go. I'm also looking for the higher end old electronics, like Kenwoods, audiophile, receivers, shit like that, turntables, the older turntables. The turntables had some weight to them with very, very little plastic on them. Mostly they were wood and a lot of brushed aluminum. So that's kind of the things that I'm looking for. And got to watch out with some of those older electronics too. And they do this with a lot of newer electronics as well. A Darlington Power Pack is a chip that controls, it's basically the amplifier of the unit. And what the Darlington Power Pack does is if you have a set of speakers, an A left and right and a B left and right, if you have nothing plugged into A and you hook up speakers into B and you push B and turn them on, you won't have no sound. Or if you have A has a left channel hooked up and you have speakers left and right hooked up in B and you push B in, one side shuts off because the Darlington Power Pack powers up all sets of the speakers. So it's not true separate amplifiers. That's kind of one of the things I stay away from. I don't like the Darlington Power Packs. They're cheap. It's a cheap way of amplification. It works, but they mostly sound distorted. Yeah, I don't even bother with those. So I'm looking for a certain type of audio equipment as well. Just always on the look. The old Scott's, speakers, some of the older Fisher stuff. Just certain things I'm looking for as far as audio equipment. Turntables. I'm always on the hunt for a turntable. That's kind of. I have a Kenwood KD 500 with the Black Widow tone arm, and it's kind of like my main turntable. And my backup turntable is my Techniques, and again, they're both high quality turntables. But if I ever find like a old Morenz turntable or something like that, yeah, I'm gonna grab it. So. You guys take care, have a good one, and I will see you guys when I get back because where I'm going, the internet sucks and so does the cell phone connection. So for a 15-minute video, it would take me all day to upload where I'm going out there. So unless they fix that, and then I'll be still using the computer the way I used to, the way I use it at home. You guys take care, have a good one. Enjoy.